everybody, and welcome to Speaking of Sustainability, the show where we introduce you to the leaders and change agents making a difference in the sustainability space. I'm your host, Colleen Falicki. After starting my composting business in 2017, I quickly realized that our communities are looking for more ways to be sustainable in their daily lives and to support eco-friendly businesses. I'm so excited to introduce you to some sustainable superheroes as we all look to make our planet a better place for years to come. Hello, everyone. I am super excited for this episode, and I know you will be too. To start off with, I just always start with a sustainable fact. This one kind of blew my mind, but some new refrigerators are so energy smart, they use less electricity than a light bulb. Wow, that's pretty fantastic and great to know. I did not know that. And if you're going to upgrade, look for something that uses electricity would be my suggestion. All right. We are going to get into it here. I'm super excited to introduce you to our guest today. Her name is Crystal, and she is also known as the Compost Fairy. She's a compost enthusiast, educator, and consultant, also a Zone A gardener. We'll talk a little bit about that, and spreader of the good compost gospel. Fantastic. Thank you for joining me today, Crystal.
Hi, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is something, this is wonderful. I've been excited. I've been following you on Instagram and learning about what you're doing there with the type of composting that you're doing. And so I would love to share that with the folks that are watching this, and hope to just kind of share how everyone can get involved with composting and how easy it can be. I guess before we dive into it, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started with composting.
Yeah, so I live in Oklahoma City, and I first kind of started composting when I was working a part-time job at this cosmetic store. It's kind of like it was a store that was very like heavily like focused on sustainability, and so composting was one of the things they did because a lot of their products were compostable, and so I kind of knew a little bit about composting because my mom tried it like when I was young years ago, but that didn't really last as long. And so when I heard we were doing it at work, I was like, oh, this is very interesting. When I realized all the things we could compost, I was just like, oh my God, like this takes sustainability to another level. I was already someone who was like pretty like sustainably conscious, I would say. I was like really into recycling, and I was always into reusing things and repurposing things, and only buying thrift store clothes, things like that. And so composting just felt like a level up, in sustainability whenever I first learned about it. So when I moved into my house, I was like, okay, I'm going to start composting. And I did not know what I was doing at first. I just literally went to Pinterest and typed in like how to compost. The first thing that popped up was bury your scraps. And so I started using the trenching method, and I did that for like 2 years.
Wow.
And it was a great method because at the time I was a teacher, and so I had went to a professional development overseas, and I was gone for 6 weeks. And when I came back, the area where I had been composting before had been super dilapidated. And then when I came back 6 weeks later, it was just full of grass. And I was like, wow, like that compost like literally gave life to this area, and like now it's like has grass again. And so I just kind of like fell in love with it in a way, and just started wanting to learn more and more about it, and dive deeper into it. And so when I kind of first started my little YouTube channel, my first episode was about composting, and so I just researched it. That's when I learned more about greens and browns and air and water, and I was just like, whoa, this is like there's so much to this. So sorry, that was kind of a long answer, but yeah. It was,
no, I love it. I love to hear about it, and kind of what brought you to where you are today, to what you're doing. Digging a hole. That's actually how I learned. My grandmother was doing that, and I watched her, do the exact same thing. Now, sometimes,
wow.
Yeah, back in the 70s and early 80s, and
I love that.
yeah, so and that kind of inspired me. And it's interesting what you that you say that that's the way that you got started, and now you're doing something, you're composting differently in a different way. Um, can you share a little bit about, like, I'm familiar with that, like hot composting and, composting either in a tumbler or, with a pile in the backyard. But tell our audience a little bit about what you do, or a lot about what you're doing and how it's different than, say, hot composting.
So yeah, I like these days I kind of I focus on all the methods, but I have a compost bin, compost pile, vermicompost, bokashi, um, and I feel like I'm missing one. But I have various compost systems, and I would say the one that I utilize the most is the bin, where I just have holes plugged in, like
Mhm,
holes drilled into it, and then the bottom is totally cut out, so it's right on the ground.
mhm.
Um, and then I've been utilizing bokashi a lot too, which is like a form of fermentation more than composting, but it's considered composting. It's where you ferment the food with essential microorganisms. It's like a brand that's inoculated, and that ferments the food, and you can bury it or add it to your compost pile, and it'll break down quicker than traditional forms of composting. So I kind of I like I kind of like, I go in between all of them just because I like to do all of them and try them, and
Sure.
like share that with people, of course, too. Because even like, some days even with my scraps, I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to give these to my worms today," because
Got it.
I think vermicomposting is such a great method for folks in small spaces or in big spaces, and a really good
Right.
way to like get really rich or like organic matter. So
That's awesome.
um,
Is
yeah.
it true that worms should not have citrus?
So here's the thing. Like I've read both, and I'm leaning on more the side of like it's okay in moderation.
Okay.
Because I think it also depends on the environment. Um, and like how much you're giving them. So I think like I like either saw a video from like Sub Pod or somebody say that like sometimes it's good to like you feed the citrus to your worms, like they'll kind of leave it alone and like let it break down a little bit more,
Mhm. Okay.
that like some of like the it's like it's a little bit less acidic than it was when it came into the bin. Then once it's kind of broken down a little bit, then they'll go to it and eat it.
Oh, that's good to
And
know.
even with me, like my worm bin, I usually just put my citrus in my outdoor bin because
Okay.
I kind of know that it's an environment where it's going to break down, and the worms, they don't have to feel like they're forced to eat it because there's so much other stuff going on in the bin that they can come back to it or
Got it.
just totally ignore it and it'll still break down and be totally fine. So I just don't think it's like I just would hate to think there's a whole subset of like fruits that we can't compost. So that's why
Sure.
I'm like, I don't think that I'm definitely on the side of like, yeah, like it's fine, like if you're doing in moderation, balancing with browns,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
letting not totally oversaturating your bin or your pile with the citrus, but balancing it. I think you can like successfully compost with it, and especially with bokashi, you can definitely do it with bokashi. So
Interesting. So, with bokashi, can you put, like, bones, dairy, and oils in there as well?
yeah, you can put bones, dairy, meat, raw meat, or cooked meat. And you would want to add a little bit more of the brand when you do add foods like that, just because like it is a little bit,
Mhm.
if there's ferments different than like regular like vegetables and stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, you can. Um, I had bokashi some raw meat. This was at the very beginning when I tried it,
Mhm.
and I wasn't sure if it like I wasn't sure if it worked, so I ended up hot composting it too.
Okay.
And it totally like it just ended up totally disappearing.
Alright.
Um, yeah, so you're totally fine with it in the
Okay.
bokashi system.
Okay.
And it's kind of like what makes it kind of stand out because you can kind of compost those hard to compost things. So, and that's something that I actually want to do soon on my page is kind of show like I want to do a book. I just don't eat a lot of meat myself.
Mhm.
and so I just or in like the dairy I do have I eat.
Right.
Um, so I haven't like composted that stuff as much because I just don't have it in large quantities. But I do want to do like a post where I just show like maybe a bin that's like solely meat and like dairy
Mhm.
stuff and show how it'll break down. So that'll be coming. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, but like a lot
Excited to
of
see
folks
it.
who do bokashi, they compost all that stuff and it's totally fine.
Good to know. When I teach classes about, backyard composting, folks ask me, what if I have a small space, and what if like I can't even do a tumbler outside? How do I compost? And I mentioned the bokashi and then worm composting. How does I guess the main thing is like people think about composting inside and that it might smell. So that's like the number one question I get about that. How do you do bokashi inside so that you don't have any? Is it just like a bucket with a lid or a container with a lid, and you just
Yeah,
put
it's like you
it?
want to get like a container that has like a
Mm,
airtight steel lid.
mhm.
And you when you put all your food scraps in it, you like either like whether you're adding as you go or you do one like bulk method, you end up just like closing it and it doesn't smell. It doesn't have a smell at all. Like I have like I have two bins in my den right now that are full of food scraps. They've been sitting for like a month. They're only supposed
They're
to
still
sit for a
breaking down.
couple of weeks, but they're well, a month is okay, but they've been sitting for a while. But you don't smell them because like you don't smell it at all. Now, depending on your bin, like I had a DIY bin where I drilled holes in one bin and
Uh-huh.
then put that bin in the same size bin as the other bin that has the holes in
Okay.
it. And so when I would because it's like a drainage that kind of happens at
Mhm.
the bottom, and so like a leachate.
Got it.
So when I take the bin out, yeah, okay, you can smell like, but it doesn't like stink. It smells like fermented fruit, like fruit that's just
Okay.
really
Fermented. Got it.
yeah, not rotted, but more like
Okay.
oh, okay, like and especially like with me, like I'll have a lot of like citrus and stuff like that, and so I can still smell like the oranginess of it, but it's a little bit more potent.
Got it.
But again, I only smelled that because I lifted it up.
Out.
Normally, just sitting there, it's fine.
Okay.
And that leachate can be used to either fertilize your plants or as like a compost activator in your compost pile. Um,
Oh, great. That's great to know.
yeah,
So
and
don't
then
get rid of it.
right, yeah. Um, So yeah, it
Okay.
doesn't have like a bad smell or anything. If
Okay.
it does have a bad smell, if it does end up having a bad smell, then yeah, something
There's a problem.
yeah,
Yeah.
you fucked up somehow. So
Good to
something
know.
happened, yeah, some issue happened, but if it has that vinegary, pickly smell, then
Okay.
you're good.
Got it. Do you sell the bokashi brand, or where do you get yours? Where do you recommend?
I there's a couple people that I've gotten them from and that I've
Mhm.
had success with. There's a uh couple, three accounts. I would say Garden of Oz CEO on
Okay.
Instagram. They sell like beer kashi, which is from like spent grain, which I think is really cool because it's their take on
Oh,
reusing. They go to breweries, get their spent grain, then use that as the bokashi brand. So it's like I'm like that's such a
wow.
talk about sustainability, you know?
That
Like
just blew me. I didn't know you could do that.
yeah, it's really cool, and I actually um I need to make a video, but I use one of their the beer kashi with the like with my food scraps and stuff, and
Uh-huh.
it worked really well. So they
Wow.
sell some, and then there's another guy, Good Grow Organics, he sells some. And then Bokashi Living, they sell brand as well. So those
Okay.
are kind of where I get. I haven't I've I've kind of experimented inoculating my own, but
Mhm.
um I don't think I have all the right ingredients. Um,
Okay.
and it's a little bit of like a process. And so I'm always in between like, oh, I can make it myself, or like, oh my god, let me just buy it because this is kind of
Right.
involved. It's really scientific. You have to like get lactobacillus and yeast and photo something and like do all these things and you know.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
so it's a
I
process.
kinda did it once with I made lactobacillus, and I inoculated that with I inoculated the brand, but it was a brand that I had that wasn't really so good. I had bought it locally, but it wasn't the best.
Okay.
Um, and it worked, but then, like, it worked, but then it also kinda didn't work, but it ended up working. Like, if that makes sense, like, 'cause the I had white mold will sometimes form, and that's
Mhm.
kind of like a good sign.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so I had white mold, and then it turned into brown, like not brown mold, like blue mold, blue and
Huh.
green mold.
Okay.
That's not really a good sign. It's not supposed to be that color. And so I thought the bin had failed. And then like I left it for another 2 weeks. When I came back, it was just a sea of white mold. So
Oh,
I'm like, okay, so it worked,
interesting.
but kind of didn't for a second, but then it ended up working. So it's
You're
yeah,
not sure what happened there. So it sounds
yeah,
like
exactly.
in between.
The science is very interesting, but
Huh.
I've been gifted some, and so but I do recommend the ones that I've been gifted because they do work well. So
Got it. Oh, that's good to know. I could talk about this all day. I'm
yeah, me too.
fascinating. I had a couple more questions about that, but we can kind of we can move on because I had questions about gardening as well. So talk about zones when it comes to gardening. You're in 7A, Oklahoma City, right?
Yes.
How does it affect you, like planting season, or also composting wise, if you're composting outdoors?
So yeah, we probably experience. I would say we experience the four seasons pretty much here, very
Got it.
intensely though. Like summer's a bit. I mean, even though it's not summer yet, it feels like it's summer because it's been kind of hot. But
Hmm.
I don't know. I think that's global warming too. Um,
Same here,
but
Pennsylvania.
yeah, okay, yeah. I'm like it's already like kind of really getting hot, but um, like I don't know. I say I can feel like I can grow stuff. I mean, the seasons have been kind of weird to where, like, like when it has those intense hot summers or maybe those intense cold winters, like that can kind of like throw stuff off a little bit. But for the most part, I've, been okay in terms of like my perennials coming back and being able to like, plant stuff right now outside and feel
Mhm.
like, oh, it can sustain itself. So it's pretty good. I don't really know much about other zones, but
Mhm.
here it's pretty like we're kind of I break the rules a little bit in terms of like plant this and during these months or plant this. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm just planting it whenever. I know that's not good, but I'm like,
Well,
but yeah,
interesting that you should say that. We just had a frost night a couple weeks ago.
really,
Yeah, and so had to
wow,
run out and cover things, bring things in,
right,
kind of do all those things. And I lost some plants. I don't have a lot, but um, it's you never know, I guess.
yeah, no, oh my god, no, that's a little like frustrating, because it's
Mhm.
like you expect it to be okay after that, like April 15th or whatever.
Yes.
Especially in May. By May, you
Yes.
expect it to be like you expect everything to be like fine. So when it's
Right.
not, it's like really a bummer.
Yeah, yeah. I know friends who have lost plants, but you don't know. Like you can't tell these things. So,
Right.
so when do you start? I guess when do you start outside, like planting outside in 7A? Is it?
Now, so a lot of people start like I would say that people start usually like March, definitely after April 15th. I'm a little late right now, so because I did some traveling, and so I didn't really
Mhm.
want to plant too much stuff and not be home, and so um, I'm still like kind of planting stuff and figuring stuff out. I feel like I'm late, but I keep telling myself like, nope, nope, it's fine. You have time. It's not even June yet, even though June's in 2 days. But
Mhm.
I'm like, it's not June yet, so it's fine. Um, but I have like right now I have some potatoes growing and
Nice.
onions from the winter that are flowering right now, and I planted some tomatoes and I just
Good
planted
stuff.
some like loofah and stuff like that.
Oh, I've never grown that. That
I
sounds
grew one
good.
last year. It was late though, but so I'm trying again. I'm hoping that
Uh-huh.
I'm getting it earlier. Um, but they're supposed to be really cool, and I want to like be able to like use it.
Sure. Yeah, for
So
sure.
um,
Good
and
stuff.
I plan on planting like some. I have some sunflowers. I plan on planting more. I'm really. I'm like a flower person.
Mhm.
I'm like my top ones are like zinnias, the tithonias, the Mexican sunflower, regular sunflowers, the colorful sunflowers,
Nice.
marigolds, coreopsis.
Ooh,
Um, so
sounds
I'm
good. I
planting a lot of that to get pollinators, and
was gonna
I'm
say,
also trying to get into native plants. I don't know. I'm trying. I feel like a few of them are native, but I'm trying to get more into like
Mhm.
getting more native plants to get like the native populations of bugs and stuff. So, what about you? What's growing up? Like, are
Right
you
there with you, actually trying to add more natives to my landscape.
okay?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Just again for the pollinators and um, have less lawn, more native plants, and for the birds, and I like bird watching, and so in the backyard. But
Yes.
I just actually just planted because of so much going on. I finally planted my tomato, and I bought the seeds, but I never used them. I bought a plant. Like I
Yeah.
bought a couple of
No, I
plants
do
that
too.
already started. Yeah. I kind of
Yeah.
felt like I was cheating, but at that point I figured I just need to get it into the ground.
Yeah. And I kind of tell myself like I saw this one video by like I forget. I think her name is like the homestead homemaker or something. But she had a video that was like whether to plant from seed or to do from transplants, whether to do this, whether to do that. It's all going to the same goal, and it's all good, and it all just depends on your lifestyle. So it's okay. So I had to like tell myself that 'cause I'm like, oh my god, like no, I've definitely done those like all starting from seed gardens, you know. But
Right, right.
sometimes like when life comes at you fast, and you just like I had to go buy some plants the other day, and I was just like, you know, it is what it is. It is what it is, you know. And then I'm just gonna have late harvest with the other stuff I actually do plant. So yeah, no, it's all
Yeah.
good. Don't feel bad.
Thank you for that. I was feeling kind
Yeah,
of bad about that. Feeling
no,
better
no,
now. Oh, well, that's great so we can all just take a deep breath and realize we're doing good whatever we're doing here.
exactly, absolutely, absolutely. We're all trying to get to the same goal, and we're all going in the pace that's best for us.
For sure, for sure. Well, do you have any call to actions you like to share with our audience? Where to follow you? Things like that.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter. Compost Fairy for all of them. Some of them have no Y. Some of them have one Y. Some of them have two Y's. But usually, when you just type in like compost and then like put the F up, I
Mhm.
usually pop up. So
Yeah.
I'm on there just talking about composting and gardening and trying to just get folks knowing about it. It's so interesting because like I sometimes I get a little insular when I like post and like with the community that I've been able to build on Instagram, so it's like I feel like a lot of people know about it, but then I get into like the real world and I tell people about it. They're like, "What's that?" And I'm like,
Yes.
"Well, let me tell you." But I'm like, "Well, there's still a lot of people that don't know about composting."
A
So
lot. I feel
yeah,
like you had posted something and I said, same thing here, just the maybe not wanting to know. And so
right,
sometimes it's a little bit frustrating when it's something that is so
yes,
good and the lack of like interest or even like wanting to know more. So
right,
you make it fun. I feel like everyone should go and follow Crystal because she makes it fun and like exciting and what's happening next in the bucket, like and like visuals, like you can see her videos are great. So definitely
oh, thanks.
recommend. You inspire me. You inspire me to want to do bokashi too.
Oh, thanks. I'm
Um,
glad. No, yeah, you should definitely try it. Like, I just want like people to see, and I tried to like, I know I feel like I try to like test the limits. I try to like test the limits and like meet like kind of what am I trying to say? Like test the limits and really kind of like push the boundaries of compost so people can kind of like see like whoa like she's going that far and like it's going really well and it's
mhm.
not bad in terms of like yeah, like we can build this pile and have all these food scraps in it, it's fine. Or we can have this bucket here with all these food scraps fermenting and it's fine. Or we can make this liquid compost and it's totally fine. Like
So
and
great.
you
So great
know,
to see. Yeah.
yeah,
You can do it wherever you are. There's many different ways. You make it
right.
kind of
It's based on
easy.
how you're living.
Right.
So
Exactly. Speaking of, before we get out of here, I just wanted to do our breakdown. So if you could discuss or tell us about like a misnomer in the sustainability space for our listeners and our viewers. What do you think folks should know?
I mean, I really think that like it's important for people to realize that it really is like the power is like within us, especially like not even just with the choices we make, but like especially legislatively. We get to choose we're supposed to be the ones at least who get to choose who's in office, and we get to be the ones to choose how we want just certain like entities and places to show up in the name of sustainability. And so I just think that like making those personal choices, but also ensuring that the people that we vote for know that we want these choices on a legislative level as well are very important. And there really is power in numbers and power in like, you know, there's power in the people.
Yes.
I know that sometimes it feels like there isn't, and we can just feel like one little person in this, like, which really we are, like, when you think about it, we're just one little person, in, like, the galaxy. But, like, when we can, like, combine together, though, and work together and realize that, like, no, this isn't just like I'm not just here for me, I'm here for everybody.
100%. Yeah.
Then, that's when I think some really good change can happen. And it just, again, I'm a big like at your pace and in the way that works best for you, and people know what works best for them, and they can like work towards other things as well. So
that's so great. That's so great to share that message, because I think sometimes we get so caught up in I'm not doing enough. I'm doing this, but I'm not doing that. Like everything that you're doing and speaking up about and voting for makes a difference.
Right.
I wish we had more time today.
Yeah, no, this was great.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad that you're able to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. This was really, really great. I really enjoyed myself, and I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thanks again.
Yes,
Thank
absolutely.
You. Fantastic. Well, thank you everyone for being here today, for listening, for watching, and looking forward to next month. Thank you for tuning in to another awesome episode of Speaking of Sustainability. Please follow and support our guests as we encourage you to continue doing your part to make a difference in our global community. And don't forget to rate, like, and share. See you next time.